Stephen Strange. The Illuminati will see you now.
We will see what kind of Doctor Strange you are.
Welcome back, everyone. This will be my Doctor Strange 2 video all about the big Marvel Secret Wars arc that they're setting up, a bunch of teasers during the movie about incursions. There's going to be so much crazy stuff happening in the next couple of years, so if you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. I'm doing a giveaway for Disney Plus memberships. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and leave all your predictions for Time Runs Out in Secret Wars in the comments. Careful for spoilers for the movie if you haven't seen it yet, because we have to talk about the post-credit scene, everything that they set up, and everything the Illuminati talks about with the incursions. But during the movie, one of the major running storylines in the background is that a bunch of different characters recently in the Marvel movies, the Disney Plus series, have done things to the multiverse that have destabilized the cosmic barrier between universes, causing incursions to start happening.
Your arrival here confuses and destabilizes reality. The larger the footprint you leave behind, the greater the risk of an incursion.
It'd be interesting to do something like Secret Wars or...
The way they define incursions in the MCU is that it's when one universe collides through the cosmic barrier through an adjacent universe, destroying both of them. And because the multiverse exists in a sort of spherical-like state, like a three-dimensional state, the more incursions happen, the quicker they start happening in an exponential rate. So it's not a linear thing. It might have started with only a couple universes, but now by the events of this movie, more and more universes all over the multiverse are just winking out of existence, colliding with each other. So even though only a couple characters during the movie briefly mentioned this fact, like this is a really dangerous thing that's happening, it's actually a really, really serious problem, and it's sort of like their next big Infinity Saga level arc. Like this is a Secret Wars arc that we're in. Instead of trying to assemble the Infinity Stones into the Infinity Gauntlet, now the whole idea is that they're trying to prevent the collapse of all reality, everything in all of existence, all dimensions, all universes, everything. How do you go bigger than the Infinity Gauntlet in Avengers Endgame? Well, instead of trying to destroy an entire universe, you try to destroy an entire multiverse. During the movie, John Krasinski's Reed Richards of the 838 Universe Illuminati team is the first to really start talking to MCU Doctor Strange about the incursions themselves, and even though the whole Illuminati team kind of wants to get rid of our MCU Doctor Strange, if that wasn't clear, they'd seen their version of Doctor Strange start to be corrupted by the Darkhold and sensed him going evil, becoming this huge threat to the multiverse, so they think that all Doctor Stranges are capable of this and will eventually do this. So that's why when they see our Doctor Strange show up in their universe, they're like, oh, it's happening again, we gotta get rid of him. So John Krasinski's Reed Richards in the background is also thinking about this big domino effect, this larger multiverse problem. That's why the Illuminati in the comics were formed, to solve these giant cosmic level problems. But the whole idea here with the rate of the incursions in universes being destroyed speeding up quicker and quicker over time is that time is running out for the multiverse, which is why in the comics this whole arc is literally called Time Runs Out.
Mild shock.
There'll be a couple changes, obviously, for the MCU version of this, but you've started to see this play out in the background of this movie. In the comics, the Illuminati of the 616 universe, which they actually canonize now as the main MCU universe. If you were confused about that, now canonically, because they mentioned it in a movie, the main MCU is 616. But in the comics, their version of the Illuminati are alerted by their Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four about what's happening. He's found this giant multiverse problem. Universes are being destroyed. We need to stop it somehow. They use their universe's version of the Infinity Stones to blow up an alternate universe Earth from colliding with their main Marvel Earth to prevent another incursion that would have destroyed their universe. In the movie, they actually specifically mentioned their team formed to solve really gray area kinds of problems. They come off with this really shady vibe. That's the way they portray them in the comics, like, you're not really evil, but you're not necessarily that good either. You're doing really bad things. They basically blow up an entire alternate universe, trillions upon trillions of people to save their own universe. It'd be like if someone blew up the entire MCU just to save their alternate universe, which is kind of what's happening right now with the Kang Multiverse War. During the movie, not just the Illuminati characters talk about the incursions, the way that John Krasinski's Reed Richards talks about them, though, they do make it sound like they're kind of blaming our Doctor Strange because of what he's done messing with the multiverse in the last couple of Marvel movies. But the incursions themselves started happening in a big way right after the events of the Loki series. So some of you have asked about this, and you're all correct. It's all because of what Loki and Sylvie did. Kevin Feige confirmed this recently. He said that was when the really WTF things happened in the MCU, where Loki and Sylvie wrecked the multiverse. So like Thanos, the Hulk, Iron Man, all snapping versions of the Infinity Gauntlet at different times, releasing crazy levels of cosmic energy in the MCU, those did destabilize the cosmic barrier between universes a little bit, but the actual full-blown incursions, like universes colliding with each other, destroying each other, didn't really start happening until Sylvie killed He Who Remains Kang during the Loki finale, freeing all the Kang variants and starting another version of the Kang Multiverse War. So even though it gets a little confusing when you start talking about the difference between alternate timelines, alternate universes, alternate dimensions, the way that Marvel is using the term, they're all kind of connected. They're using the term multiverse very broadly to define everything that exists, every big concept, dimensions, timelines, and universes. So when we're talking about time runs out, incursions, secret wars in the MCU, you could talk about alternate dimensions, alternate universes, alternate timelines as being kind of like the same thing, even though technically they're meant to be a little bit different. The way they define alternate timelines in the MCU is that you have a universe and somebody does something really crazy, causes a nexus point. Once that nexus point goes past the red line, that variant basically winds up creating an entire alternate universe, and the multiverse grows just a little bit more. So at the end of the Loki series, you see the multiverse sort of spring forth all these alternate timelines, and even though we only see this for a couple of seconds, the effect continues, like it continually grows until the Kang Multiverse War starts happening and different timelines, different universes start to go to war with each other, and the total number of universes start to decrease slowly, but then at an exponential rate. So really, the incursions themselves started happening when the Kang variants started messing with the multiverse, but then after that, a couple other things started happening that made things way, way worse. For instance, Spider-Man and Doctor Strange messing up the spell in Spider-Man No Way Home, that destabilized the barrier between alternate universes even more, causing even more incursions to start happening. Then during Doctor Strange 2, you have Scarlet Witch, you have America Chavez, Doctor Strange crashing all over the multiverse, alternate dimensions, messing with alternate versions of the characters. That makes things even worse, more and more incursions start happening, so they just kind of compound the effect of the Kang Multiverse War. But they themselves didn't start what was happening with the incursions. That was really Loki and Sylvie, technically, in Kang variants. So the Illuminati, John Krasinski's Reed Richards, aren't wrong to be mad at our Doctor Strange for what he's done, because he has made the problem even worse. It's just that he's only the tip of the iceberg. At the end of the movie, Charlize Theron's Clea comes from the Dark Dimension. She's Dormammu's niece. She's like the daughter of Dormammu's twin sister. They're like a race of beings that are kind of like Asgardians in that universe. Super advanced. Some of them gain crazy levels of power, like Dormammu, for instance. He's sort of like a sinister, strange version of their race of beings who just gains crazy levels of power. So originally, Dormammu looked kind of like Clea, more humanoid. Clea's father was the ruler of the Dark Dimension until Dormammu performed a coup, got rid of him, and took over. She's also meant to be kind of like the Sorcerer Supreme of that entire universe, so she's just as powerful as MCU Doctor Strange. In the comics, she's kind of like his true love interest. They get married, so she is Doctor Strange's wife, basically. MCU going full waifu in Marvel Phase 5. She shows up in the MCU using her own magical portals between universes to get our Doctor Strange's help, saying that he just caused another incursion recently because of the events of the movie. And because she takes him back to the Dark Dimension, I'm assuming that means that the incursion specifically is threatening the Dark Dimension itself. So it's like Doctor Strange is technically going to save Dormammu's life. Also, the fact that she was specifically able to target him and know that he was responsible and he would be powerful enough to help her amongst all the other infinite number of Doctor Stranges in the multiverse shows you how powerful she is. Like, she'd follow the breadcrumb trail back to MCU Doctor Strange. She was able to find him specifically. Really, what they're trying to do, though, is find a way to save the multiverse, stop the incursions, because the more they happen, the faster they grow, the quicker the entire multiverse winds up blowing up, and RIP all of reality. The way they play the post-credit scene, though, it seems like the events of Clea and Doctor Strange fighting whatever incursion happens in the Dark Dimension will be covered in a future crossover movie, or they might wait till a big time runs out Avengers crossover movie, or they could do it in Doctor Strange 3. But what they are teasing with all this talk of incursions is a time runs out movie first, and then after that would be the full-blown Secret Wars. And just to be clear, we're talking about the 2015 more recent version of Secret Wars. There are two big versions that everybody remembers. The one from the 80s, they did this whole big toy licensing thing. I include the clip in some of my videos sometimes because it's kind of funny.
Secret Wars.
Marvel's supervillains are coming.
Secret Wars.
That was the one that they covered during the Spider-Man animated series back in the 90s, where the Beyonder brings a bunch of them to a planet to do battle with each other just to test them. That was where Spider-Man got the Venom symbiote back in the comics. Obviously, in the MCU, things are going to be a little bit different because we just saw them leave the Venom symbiote in the MCU during Spider-Man No Way Home. But for instance, they're kind of teasing a very Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame kind of scenario where you take a big story and you break it across a couple big Avengers level movies. Now, it might not be the Avengers movies, they might just call it a Secret Wars saga. But like the Time Runs Out movie would be like Avengers 5, then Avengers 6 would be like the full-blown Secret Wars film. There are a lot of big characters that are involved in this Time Runs Out storyline in Secret Wars like God Emperor Doom. They haven't introduced a version of Doctor Doom in the MCU yet. But during the comic book version of Time Runs Out, Doctor Strange winds up going off on his own to try and find a way to stop the incursions, kind of like we see happen during the movie. He goes off on his own with Clea. He winds up finding out that a version of Doctor Doom has basically amassed all this multiverse power and started capturing this really powerful character called Molecule Man, which he senses will be the key to defeating their true enemy, which is the Beyonders. One of the big differences of the comic book is that the reason the incursions started happening is because the Beyonders, this race of beings that existed outside the normal multiverse, basically decided that it was time to get rid of the multiverse, so they started destroying all these universes. Doctor Strange winds up working with Doctor Doom. They cause all this collateral damage, and it winds up leaving only a few universes left, but they use that power to then try and stop the Beyonders. Doctor Doom basically steals their power and becomes God Emperor Doom, gaining so much power that he basically takes the fragments of all the remaining universes that are left and combines them into a single universe, and that becomes their version of Battleworld, where all the different variants of the characters do battle with each other for supremacy. In that scenario, it actually winds up being Reed Richards who solves the problem, like how do we restore the multiverse? He uses Franklin Richards' power to create entire alternate universes, like Franklin Richards is so powerful, he can just conjure up entire alternate universes, and that's how they bring the entire multiverse back. John Krasinski's Reed Richards even mentions that his version of Franklin Richards exists in their universe. But for instance, one of the really big changes that they've already made in the MCU is that it sounds like the Kang Multiverse War and just Kang as a character will be a much bigger figure in this MCU version of Secret Wars and Time Runs Out. They might tease a little bit of that in Thor Love and Thunder, but I'm not expecting a bunch of it. Maybe a little bit in Black Panther 2 later this year. But really it's going to be in Ant-Man 3 next year where they'll tease legit Secret Wars because they have a version of Kang the Conqueror who will be in the middle of that second Kang Multiverse War. Right now, based on the timeline, they'd be able to do their first Time Runs Out big crossover movie by 2024. So if they pace things out like Infinity War and Avengers Endgame and release the next couple of big Secret Wars movies pretty close together, we might see full-blown Secret Wars around 2025 or 2026. There's like 1,000 other things that go into this version of Time Runs Out and Secret Wars, so if you have any questions about what's going on with the characters or any of the big teasers for Secret Wars during the movie, just write them in the comments below and I'll cover them in my bonus videos. I've got a bunch of videos planned for the movie, so I'll try to post those in the next couple of days, but everyone click here for my new Doctor Strange 2 Iron Man deleted scene video to learn what was going on with him during the movie, and click here for my full Doctor Strange 2 post-credit scene video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.